Amy, let me tell you about a magical place that is so exactly designed to be enclosed space, year-round fun for the whole family that I bet you already know what I'm going to say before I even say the name. Let's say it together on 3. 1, 2, 3. Great Wolf Lodge. You got it, Amy.
My kids loved Great Wolf Lodge when we went. You probably already know that it has a huge indoor water park with a wave pool, lazy river, a bunch of massive water slides. But then your pack can hit the other attractions because, wait, there's more.
Great Wolf Lodge has adventure-packed attractions like Magi Quest, a live-action game kids can play throughout the lodge, plus the Northern Lights Arcade. Spent some quality time there, so your kid who loves the lazy river and your kid who loves fantasy games will both have a great time.
Great Wolf Lodge also offers great dining options and complimentary daily events like nightly dance parties, all under one roof. Unpack the car once and you're settled in to have fun. And with 22 lodges across the country, you're always a short drive away from adventure.
We've both had such great times at Great Wolf Lodge, so bring your pack together at a lodge near you. Learn more at greatwolf.com and strengthen the pack.
It's pretend, okay?
What fresh hell?
Laughing in the face of motherhood. Your husband is dead, Murray. With Margaret Abels
and Amy Wilson.
Norma Nersher.
A podcast that solves today's parenting dilemmas
so you don't have to.
Oregon. Origami.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of What Fresh Hell Laughing in the Face of Motherhood. This is Margaret.
And this is Amy. And this week we're talking about imaginative kids. I love this topic. This is a great idea suggested by Chris in Cortland Manor.
Can I just say, having an imaginative kid, that I suggested the title Imaginative Kids, if you must.
Right. If you must have one.
It's not always a picnic, these imaginative kids.
This is like, I did so much research on this. This was such an interesting idea, and we love getting topics from our listeners. So keep sending them. You can send them to questions@whatfreshhellpodcast.com like Chris did. So Chris says, our 5-year-old has a huge imagination and has for years. I'm wondering if it's too big. One example, she was catching lightning bugs and started telling me each of their names, and she seems to genuinely believe the stories. The problem is that this year when she was in kindergarten, she started telling her classmates about leprechauns and zombies who can sneak into homes. Just FYI, the leprechauns can sneak in through the radiators, apparently, and zombies.
Guys, come on. This is essential. Don't ever tell us this podcast didn't give you essential information.
Kids, if you're listening with mom, this is just pretend. She says the leprechauns can sneak in through radiators and zombies like Santa, apparently, which I didn't know.
That is surprising for the undead, I would say. I am surprised that they are still on the good list.
Of course, she says. That's how they get in, like Santa does. So Chris knows a lot about leprechauns and zombies, but what she wants to know from us is how much imagination and creativity is healthy, and does it ever reach a point where you need to sort of shut it down?
So, Amy, this rarely happens, but I will give you a little behind-the-scenes glimpse. Amy was researching this topic and kept texting me to be like, OMG, there is so much interesting stuff on this topic. And I know a few things about this topic because I have done some Googling because I have somewhat of the same problem. And so I know a couple of things about this topic, and I think there's a lot of weird and interesting stuff that we're going to discuss today.
Yes. All right. So let's talk about how kids imagine, like how this sort of comes out. I mean, they might be doing it the whole time and they're just not telling us because they're babies.
Okay.
But you can see it. Psychologists sort of say like around 2, when they start making their toys talk to each other, when they start to animate their toy or their stuffed animal and make it like, you go over here. No, I don't want to. That's the imagination sort of flowering for the first time.
Okay.
And then when they're like 3 to 6 years old, that's when they're acting out. No, we're pirates. Now we're this. We were talking about this a couple of weeks ago, how the way they play together is so convoluted and confusing to adults, and it does not follow adult rules at all because everything can be true, right?
And yet has like extremely clear strictures for themselves.
Yes. And that's why it's better to just let it happen.
Right.
And then
they're like, no, Mom, that's not how the zombie wants his mac and cheese. Yeah.
And then by the time they're 6 to 9, then they start imagining worlds. And that, to me, that's the sort of peak Pokemon memorizing, right? Or my kid used to play with something called Moshi Monsters. Moshi Twilight was one of our sponsors, but Moshi Monsters, which still exists, is it's kind of like a Sims for little kids. And you make your monster's room and you feed it and you do this. And he got like way into the land of Moshi Monsters being a real thing and crying when we go away on vacation that his monster was going to die. And my sister was like logging in and feeding the monster for him.
Right.
Really went down that rabbit hole.
And what age is that?
He was in 1st and 2nd grade at the time.
Okay.
And then, and then beyond, then like school starts to get more demanding. Peers start to think maybe it's a little bit weird if you want to talk about Moshi Monsters too much or Pokemon. Right. And the world sort of says, okay, enough of that.
Yes.
And most kids sort of, it quiets, and for some kids it doesn't. So we'll talk about that. But that's the sort of like how this tends to roll out.
Yes, I'll be interested in that second part of that conversation. Kids for whom it does not quiet.
But imagination is like, that kids imagine is a good thing. Psychologists seem to think that it's something all kids do, and that it's a good thing. It's essentially positive. There's a guy named Dr. Paul Harris who wrote a book called The Work of the Imagination. Okay. And his sort of life's work is about how imagination for kids is making sense of the world. It's part of their cognitive structuring, I guess.
I mean, not having done any research on this really at all in preparation for this episode, I would say there is a clear developmental role that is played by imagination. I mean, that seems extremely clear from having dealt with children.
Did you ever have an imaginary friend when you were little?
I did. I really wanted... I feel like I was always like a comically oriented person in that I feel like I had an imaginary friend. Like I thought imaginary friends seemed really cool. Yeah. And so I invented one and I talked a lot about her, but she did not really spring from my imagination.
Yeah, you suppose.
I was like an observer of the idea of an imaginary friend. And therefore, in order to be on stage, I talked a lot about my imaginary friend.
You will probably not be surprised to hear I had 2 imaginary friends.
Do you know their names?
Yes. I had to check with Nancy Wilson about this. I remembered one, but not. I always remember Kathy and I forget Susie. I don't know why. Susie's just.
Oh, poor Susie. Yeah. Just left to the graveyard of childhood memories.
So Kathy and Susie, they were my imaginary friends. And the story goes that when I was about 2.5, I told my parents that they were coming over for dinner that evening. And they were like, okay. And they were, loving and indulgent parents. So
you're how old?
2.5.
Oh, wow.
And my dad was like, okay, I guess we better go get them. And I was like, okay, let's go. So he puts me in the car and we're driving around our town in New Jersey at the time. And he said, I was like, make a left. I think it's up there. Okay, go over there. And he let me sort of say which way to go for about, 20 minutes. And we drove around our neighborhood. And then finally I was like, oh, wait a minute. I think they're getting a ride to our house. And we went back to the house and they were there for dinner.
Okay. First of all, hats off to Jim Wilson. Yeah. Like, what a move.
They went with it.
Wow, he really indulged this. Mm-hmm. I enjoy that. And then they were already there. Yeah. And did you talk to them during dinner and stuff?
I really should have gotten Nancy on the phone for this one. I don't think I talked to them. I just was more like, they're here now. Like just FYI, they're with us. And they were my companions.
I have a story of this. Again, I don't think I really was an imaginative kid. And now I'm a writer and I come up with stuff. But it's interesting. I don't think of myself as a super imaginative person. Like, I'm not a daydreamer. Like, that's not my thing. But at some point I was talking to my mom, who I'm sure was in her 70s at the time. And I was asking her for her computer password. And I was like helping her, of course, like figure out something on the computer as one does. And I said, well, what's your computer password? And she's like, it's Norma Nurture. And I was like, I don't understand that word you're saying. She's like, Norma Nurture? I was like, what? Norma Nurture? And she's like, I'm like, what does that even mean? She's like, oh, it's my imaginary friend's name from when she was 2 years old. Norma Nurture. Norma Nurture was her librarian friend. And that was my mom's imaginary friend from the 1930s, Norma Nurture.
Wow.
And she just announced her name in her 70s as if like, oh, it's Norma Nurture.
And like your world was like, my mother was a child with an imaginary friend. Did you telescope out?
And that just this person was still so alive to her that she said her name as if like it was a completely normal thing to say out loud. It was stinking adorable.
Do your kids read the Charlie and Lola books or watch the television show? Lola has an imaginary friend. It's a British TV show, adorable, very, very
We only support American TV shows in this house, Amy.
Shop American.
Shop American.
I love Charlie and Lola. And she's, it's like big sister, little sister. And she's super imaginative Lola. And she has an imaginary friend named Soren Lorentzen. So I think there must be some rhyming thing.
Norma Nersha, Sorma Lorentzen.
Yeah, Soren Lorentzen. And he's the way that the cartoonist draws Soren, he's invisible. Like it looks like Wonder Woman's invisible plane. Like you can see him, but he looks like he's transparent.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he always does. Like she didn't want to unwrap Charlie's birthday present before he even got to open it. But see, Soren Lorentzen did it, really. It's all that kind of stuff.
Oh, well, speaking of books, our favorite books this year are called Dory Phantasmagoria. Do you know those books?
I've heard of them, yeah.
I mean, they are genuinely LOL. Like, I can't think of another book that I have read with my daughter where we're just dying laughing the whole time. And she's like the annoying younger sister to to a brother and a sister. And it's all about this imaginary life, but it's kind of dark and weird. And it's like all her imaginary friends are kind of scary, but they're hilariously scary. Like one of them is like called Mrs. Gobblecracker, and she's got like sharp teeth like needles, and she eats children. But she's just like, by the end, she's like, Dory's so annoying that she just ends up like driving them away because they can't stand her. It's so funny. Dory Phantasmagoria. They're amazing stories.
All right, check them out. Well, here's what I wanted to say about imaginary friends that I found in this research that I thought was fascinating. So there's a psychologist named Dr. Marjorie Taylor. She's a psychologist at the University of Oregon, and she has made it her life's work to study...
At the University of where?
Oregon. Oregon? Oregon. Origami?
Oregon? I would say Oregon.
Oregon. She has been studying kids and their imaginary companions. That's her thing. Like she studied specifically this for decades.
As my grandma Conroy used to say, there's a lid for every pot. There's a study for every professor. Studying imaginary friends. What a world.
This is a rabbit hole I could go down. So anyway, she says that about 65% of kids under 7 report having had one. And this is if you include, my stuffed animal's name is Barry and he would like more juice. She said if it's literally like this invisible person standing next to me is here and it's Mrs. Gobbledygook, that's about 35% of kids.
Okay.
And people always go to her, concerned parents, saying like, I think this is a little too real. I worry about this.
Right. They're way down the rabbit hole here.
Yeah. And she is quite certain that even kids who spend a great deal of time investing in playing with these imaginary friends, talking about them, driving around the neighborhood to get them for dinner, even the kids who
She doesn't say that's a bridge too far.
No,
driving around the neighborhood. She's like still fine.
She would say that even that 2.5-year-old me knew that they're not real. And the reason she knows, this is the part that I love, is that because she interviews these little children and she asks them all these questions about their imaginary friends for her research, or her researchers do as well. And something about the adult with the clipboard, always, sooner or later, the kid will self-disclose. Like the adult's asking them a lot of questions about Soren Lorentzen and writing down all the answers. And invariably, this child will say, this isn't real, right? I just made him up. Like they sort of get a little weirded out that the adult is taking it. Yeah.
They're weirded out. They're like, you're taking this a little too seriously.
You have a clipboard out, right? You're writing down everything I'm saying.
Right. Dude, relax. I'm just spitballing here.
Yes. I love this notion that the 3-year-old's like, it's pretend, okay?
You seem a little too invested in this lady from University of Oregon. Yeah.
And that is, I'm kind of giving the ending away here, I guess, but I looked into, because Chris was asking and I was interested, like, is there a downside to imaginations and over imaginations? And the truth is that psychologists used to think like, okay, that's enough of this. Grow up now. You're a big girl now. And now they say, absolutely not. There's no downside to this because even the kids who are down the rabbit hole of this is my land understand. They understand in some sense that it's not real.
That's interesting. I mean, I think there is an understandable reason why we think it's a downside, because it seems kind of isolating. It seems like you're in your own world.
Yeah.
And we kind of want you to be in the world of the people and the small children that are around you. And sometimes the imagination is shared. Like my little kid is somebody who's very, I mean, she's got the whole playground organized around searching for fairy dust. This is her obsession right now, is finding the magic wishing stone that the fairies have.
Did she make that up? The magic wishing? Did she read about that in a book, or is that a
Oh, no,
phrase she
I
came
think
up
she's
with?
made it up.
Wow.
But there's a tree at their school. They have like a kind of a blacktop playground, but there's one tree, and that's where the fairies live. And she's got like 19 other children invested in how they are going to trap the fairy out of the tree to get the magic wishing stone. And then every day, whenever we talk about problems, she's kind of like, well, yeah, I mean, but when we get the magic wishing stone, we get her brother's very insistent we get a dog. And if you've listened to this podcast, you know how that's going to go for him, not getting a dog. And she's like, it's fine. We're going to get the magic wishing stone, and we can have a dog on the cloud that we ride around on.
Is the stone in the tree?
The fairy's going to give it to her when she captures the fairy.
The fairy's in the tree.
Process.
The fairy knows where the magic wishing stone is located at some remote location.
Or just carries it around all the time. That part's not exactly
We don't know.
Oddly, having spoken about this to her for at least 46 hours, I'm still not 100% clear on the details. I zone out a bit.
And you shouldn't, and she's not concerned, so why should you be, don't nail it down, Mom. It's imagination.
I have another slight downside of imagination, and I want to talk about it right after this.
Hellions, it's time for some spring cleaning, and I don't just mean the coat closets. Doing your financial spring cleaning can actually be super easy when you let Monarch do your financial spring cleaning for you. One dashboard that gets your entire financial life organized. No more clutter, no more mess, no more logins scattered everywhere, just accounts, investments, property, and more, all in one place. Get your first year of Monarch for half off, just $50 with promo code FRESH. Monarch allows you to look not only at what you've already spent, but also to plan for the future. With Monarch, you can set savings goals, plan for big purchases, and notice spending trends before they become a problem. I can generate cash flow reports that show me what we spent this quarter, this month, what we're probably going to spend next month, and feel prepared, organized, and knowing how to plan for the future. No more surprises and a lot more clarity. Try Monarch. Use code FRESH at monarch.com to get your first year half off at just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code FRESH.
You know that thing where you get an amazing pair of shoes at a really great price and want to tell everyone about it? Yeah, so do we. Here at Designer Shoe Warehouse, we'll give you something to brag about, like the latest styles from brands you love, or the trends everyone's obsessing over, or shoes that make you feel like, well, you. So go ahead, show off a little. Find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. Head to your DSW store or DSW.com today. DSW. Let us surprise you.
My favorite skincare products actually feel more like self-care, like they're so nice to put on and they smell so good that I'm actually happy when I get to that part of my day. And I swear that is how I feel about Osea's anti-aging body balm.
Amy, you are usually the lotions and potions queen on this podcast, but I have to say, hard agree.
Osea's anti-aging body balm is a liquid silk body balm that combines the lasting hydration of a lotion with the firming power of a serum, leaving skin smoother and firmer.
This body balm is clinically tested and designed to deliver visible results you can see and feel.
So we've gotten to use this product for a couple of months now, and I swear I have really noticed firmer and smoother skin, like on the back of my hands. It's like getting a mini spa treatment from head to toe.
Get a spring-worthy glow with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now, we have a special discount just for our listeners.
Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code FRESH at OseaMalibu.com.
That's 10% off your first order with code FRESH at OSEAMalibu.com.
Okay, so you have told us that all the doctors at the University of your imaginary state of Oregon do not feel concerned about imagination.
No, it's a good thing.
But
and you're here to say, except when?
Well, I think it can be problematic in the early years of elementary school that it gets in the way of learning for some kids I actually know.
Mm-hmm.
That like they're trying to teach them math and they're like, but my pencil is speaking to me about the magical land where unicorns fly.
Yeah. Yeah. There's sort of spaces and places, as you would say. And
Right.
I guess if your kid kind of can't leave that on the play deck, then there might be a little bit of a play deck. Is that a New York City thing? Playground, you guys would call it. We call it a play deck because it's on the roof of the building.
Yeah.
No,
No, that's only New York City. You're like on the play slab. The
Exactly.
joy slab.
The
No.
black top, the cracked black top my children play on.
No. That your kids are like, we have no imagination because we only have a play slab.
But let's talk about, like, I want to get back to this sort of isolation thing you suggested, because I guess it could be a problem in the classroom. But the imaginative kid from fiction that springs to mind for me is Harriet the Spy. Did you read Harriet the
Yes.
Spy? I mean, my favorite. I love this book so much.
Is Harriet the Spy an Oldilocks alert?
Back in my day.
Well, they made a movie. You know what? Even the movie's an Oldilocks
Yeah,
alert.
I think it
Harriet
is.
the Spy is an Oldilocks alert. And if you haven't read it, read it. I mean, read it and then your kid should read it. This book, I mean, I love this book so much. Harriet is just a girl who's out of pace with her, I think, fifth grade companions, but it was written in, I think, the 70s. So fifth grade feels a little younger then. She's 11 or 12, and the book starts with her in the backyard of her brownstone. She lives in New York City with her friend Scout, I think his name is, and they're playing Town. And she's like, this is Town. This is how you play. And he's sort of like, what are you talking about? She's like, this stick is the barber. And, you know, he has a drinking problem. And over here this is the church, but nobody goes there. And this is this. And she's explaining to her friend how all these like dirt and sticks and rocks is Town. And let's play Town as I do every day. And her friend is sort of like, I don't really get this. And it's sort of a metaphor for what the whole book is going to be about, that her friends are growing up and she doesn't want to grow up. She wants to stay in this, hyper creative place that she's in. And I do think that can happen as kids get older. Most kids stop doing this and some kids don't. Should we talk about the kids who kind of keep going with the
Sure.
super creative stuff? So Joshua Krish wrote an article for Fatherly about why some kids are really, really imaginative. I'll put it up on our show page at whatfreshhellpodcast.com. And you can also swipe or tap in whatever you're using to listen. And we'll put up all the links to what we're talking about. Anyway, he says that researchers say that only about 10% of kids go into complex world building activities. They call it world play. And this is Harriet the Spy playing Town. Michelle Root Bernstein. So she does a deep dive on kids who are kind of, older and still doing this after all this time.
I mean, I'm just still having the perspective that like, wow, there's a lot of people out there studying this. I'm impressed.
Studying imagination. Yeah, exactly. So she says world play is the repeated evocation of a fully realized imaginary place, usually inhabited by imaginary beings.
That's my daughter with the fairies and the Magic Wishing Stone.
And the difference between world play and make-believe, this is what Krish explains in this Fatherly article, is scale. Like make-believe would be like if you just played Town for a day, and world play is when this is what you want to play every day.
That's the fairy tree.
Yeah, the fairy tree. And kids, as they get a little older, the kids who are really into world play will start with maps and languages and, sort of backstories for the characters. One of my kids, our dog's name is Marshmallow, and he drew this map.
Oh, Amy, how dare you? We all know Marshy.
Everybody knows that.
Please.
And he wrote, he made a map, like a world map of Marshmallow Landia, and everything was like, islands, and this was all named after her. And he drew a whole like geographic landscape that he still has up on his bulletin board. And that was, he's very creative. So that's where he went one day. I'm glad we're not talking about Marshmallow Landia all the time,
Right.
but some kids do this. So,
but does this roll into like Dungeons and Dragons and that kind of stuff?
I think it does, or Sims, or part of the idea that I think we need to sort of explore is this idea that like you're imaginative when you're a kid, and then it needs to stop at some point, right? Like there are some people who they're really into these imagination things as grown-ups. And We also, I mean, we use our imaginations all the time. Like we see a rainbow in the sky and we're like, oh, rainbow. And we imbue it with meaning that it doesn't really have, right? We still engage in these sometimes superstitions, sometimes religions, fanciful, like we still do things that way.
Right. And I think it's easy to demonize the side of the equation that is like the person trying to stop imaginativeness. But I sometimes find myself on that side of it, which is like, we don't want to talk about your magic wishing stone and the cloud that it's going to take us to 24 hours a day. It's not interesting to everybody else. So like, yes, you can have imagination, but as part of this family, you cannot dominate the conversation with this. My other kid, obsessed with Marvel movies, and his brother and I have had to pass a rule at the dining room table that like, we are not going to talk about Marvel movies and what happened in them and the Marvel universe every night at the dinner table because it is not interesting to the rest of us. Like, we don't really want you to get lost in that world. We still want you to participate in our world, you know?
I think that's right. The idea that kids have to learn that there are places for it and places not for it, and that can be painful. Like Harriet the Spy, she has a painful journey in that book to realize that the way she wants to do things is not how the world works.
Right. And I mean, I think that's like when you look at like lore and legend, there's like the Narcissus in the water and the mirror in Harry Potter that you get lost looking into. Like, we do have this idea that like, you don't want to go down literal Alice in Wonderland. Like, you don't actually want to spend your life down a rabbit hole, you know?
Except that J.K. Rowling, if you want to be a hyper creative adult, I guess I'm coming at it the wrong way. You can't make your kid into somebody who will be a hyper creative adult by like making them do this. You either have this sort of
you
part
have it
of
or
you
you don't. Absolutely.
But the kids who do have this grow up to be hyper creative. Like there are, many examples. The Bronte sisters, I guess, used to sit around and pretend that there was a town, or Oliver Sacks or Jack Kerouac. There are a lot of examples of these people being sort of living in their mind and creating these worlds, and then they grew up to be hyper creative. I got a study for you.
All right, study me, because I feel like we're at a lost crossroads here.
So in 2006, this is a study that Michelle Root Bernstein did. She's the one who specifically researches the creation of imaginary worlds. So she studied MacArthur Fellows versus typical undergraduates.
MacArthur Fellows is like people who get awards for being super creative.
Yeah, they get the MacArthur Genius Grant. I should have looked up exactly what this is, but they give out maybe
just
$2,000
picture like
a year.
Lin-Manuel Miranda got one.
Lin-Manuel Miranda
like
got a
famous writers
MacArthur
get them.
Grant.
It's for people who are super creative.
It's for people who are super creative, but not necessarily in the arts. I mean, some are in the arts, and some are like entomologists in the Amazonian rainforest. You can be a scientist. You could be Elon Musk. I don't know. Like you're super creative in some way.
Okay.
And MacArthur Fellowship recipients were like 25 times more likely to have been like this as a kid than the typical undergraduate at this college, to have said, oh yeah, I totally did this world play. I made maps for my fairy world. So
right.
Like I said, it isn't, you can't make it happen, but there are good things.
Right. So it's an indicator, but it's not a cause. Like that study does not say, talk to your kids more about their fairy world.
Right. And they also said, and she's careful to say that world play does not invariably lead to your kid being a genius as an adult.
Right.
But it does indicate a flowering of their imagination that we don't have to worry about pushing back against, except to the extent that it's all they want to talk about. I think in that discomfort of like your friends, like, why are you talking only about the magic wishing stone? Like that was 5th grade. Now we're talking about who likes who. And
well, that is something that I argue vociferously for, which is letting your kid be a little bit nerdier and letting your kid not have a million friends in middle school is fine. Because I think some of this, and I fight this instinct a little bit myself sometimes, which is like, when my kids are hurt and they're like, people call me weird and like, I don't like it. And like someone called me a weirdo because I was talking about whatever my imaginary obsession was at the playground instead of the cool stuff that other kids were talking about. I try to encourage the like, that's okay. It's okay to be weird. I mean, I was a kid who believed in things that perhaps other kids had given up on into very late grades, you know, and it didn't exactly make me a winner in the game of middle school life. Let's just say that. And I look back and I'm like, that's great. Like, being on the cutting edge is not necessarily where you want to be in middle school. Like, the smartest, hippest, most jaded kid in middle school, like, that's the kid who thrives socially often in middle school. Especially if you're not an athletic kid. Like, athletic kids tend to thrive, but like, I don't have an athlete in the house. So like, that's out. And so letting your kids be a little bit, you know, behind the curve in terms of being hip and popular, giving up their imaginations, I would encourage you to have them do that.
It's interesting. You were just saying that you don't have to be on the cutting edge in middle school. And the truth is, you are on the cutting edge in middle school, right? Like, Harriet the Spy is a total badass, and the rest of her friends are like, quit acting weird, start acting normal. It's like this sort of tamping down of what makes
right. But that's your adult perspective, which I always have a problem with. Because when my kid's like crying and being like, everyone thinks I'm weird, I'm like, being weird is the best. But he does not have that perspective. Right. And it's very important for me to remember that he will not have that perspective as a fourth grader when he's like, oh my God, I drew this crazy dragon and people are like, dragons are lame. We're into something else now. Like, that experience is genuinely difficult for him. And I can't be like, you're actually the coolest kid ever. Like, he doesn't see it that way.
There's one other sort of slight downside to watch out for in kids who have highly developed imaginations. This was a correlation I had not really considered. Dr. Robin Alter, she studies kids with anxiety. And she has discovered that, she says, the children who come to see me for anxiety all typically share one common characteristic. These are children gifted with highly active and developed imaginations.
Yeah.
It's a chicken and egg thing for sure, right? Like, they're imaginative because they're anxious and they're considering possibilities all the time.
Right. But they're anxious because they can imagine all of the different.
Yeah. If you think leprechauns are in the radiator, then maybe that makes you more anxious.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I had never thought about that connection before, and yet it totally makes sense.
Well, I think there's a connection too between intelligence and imagination, and there's a connection between intelligence and anxiety, because you've thought of the possibilities while everyone else is like, I'm in third grade. What? You're like, guys, listen to me, climate change or whatever. Like, you're kind of seeing a bigger picture than some of the other kids, and naturally your anxiety is more heightened. All right. I have another insight on this after the break.
Amy, when I'm having a good hair day, it usually makes my whole day better. And that's why on every day, I'm taking Nutrafol.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand. And it's the #1 hair growth supplement brand personally used by dermatologists. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are peer-reviewed, NSF certified for sport, and clinically tested.
Nutrafol offers multiple formulas for men and women, tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors, so you get support that's actually right for you. Adding Nutrafol to your daily routine is easy. Order online, no prescription needed, with automated deliveries and free shipping to keep you on track.
Let your hair be one less thing to worry about. See visibly thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol.
For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LAUGHING.
That's Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code LAUGHING. All my kids learned to swim when they were little. It was super important to me that they be confident and safe in the water. There was only one problem with that: taking them to swim lessons. I mean, the pools were freezing. There were always cranky adults doing laps right there. And it was definitely not, for any of us, what you would call fun.
Amy, heard. But now there's Goldfish Swim School. Goldfish takes a really thoughtful approach to swim lessons, combining research-based teaching with a warm, kid-friendly environment that actually helps kids thrive in the water.
Every detail at Goldfish is thoughtfully designed to create a golden experience, from shiver-free, warm indoor pools to comfy waiting areas for parents to professionally trained lifeguards on deck.
Goldfish uses an approach called the science of swim play, which combines guided play with proven teaching techniques to help kids learn to swim, build water safety skills, and gain confidence all at their own pace. Lessons are designed to meet kids exactly where they're at.
If you've been thinking about swim lessons or just wondering where to start, this is a great opportunity. Right now, Goldfish Swim School is offering a waived membership plus your child's first lesson free at participating locations.
Just visit goldfishswimschool.com/free to find a location near you and enroll using promo code FREE.
That's goldfishswimschool.com/free, promo code FREE. Okay, so we have with us today Nancy Wilson, my mom. We're going to get to the bottom of my imaginary friends and what they were all about. Mom, tell me what you remember about Kathy and Susie.
I believe you were, say, 2.5 to 3.5, and you just suddenly started talking about these friends. And how it would be is you would tell us, like, oh, I went to the store with Kathy and Susie, or Kathy and Susie came over. It would be your way of telling us a story of something that you had done or wished you had done, I guess. And they were your constant companions.
And it was always a pair. They were always together?
Always, yes. As we recall, you always mentioned the two names together. Yep.
Was one of them a troublemaker? Did they have personalities, or were they just just there for me?
I couldn't remember, and Dad couldn't either. You're describing them as mischievous. It was just like they were your friends. They were the people that you did things with.
Did I have friends, or was it Kathy and Susie?
You were our oldest child. You were the oldest cousin. You have many cousins, but you were the first. And even among our friends, you were the first child. And at the time that you started this, we were living in New Jersey. We really weren't around family, except on weekends. But anyway, I think that you really kind of invented them just to be your companions. You had a little brother by that point, but he wasn't yet able to really communicate with you.
He was not very useful to me. And where did Kathy and Susie, where did the names come from? Where did I pull those out of?
We've never been able to figure that out. I don't know whether it was maybe a story that we read to you or something like that, or you were an avid Sesame Street fan, so maybe it was children that you saw on Sesame Street. We've never really been able to figure that out. And I guess because you were so young, you weren't really able to describe them to us. We did talk to you about them, but you never really were able to give us a good description, other than they were your friends.
Do you think that I knew that they were imaginary, or do you think that I really on some level thought that they were real?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. You may have known they were imaginary, and yet I think to your 2 to 3 year old mind, they seemed very real.
Yeah, I guess when you're 2 and 3, right? If there's fairies and Santa and everything, like, why not, right? It's all real. Everything's possible.
Exactly. I was trying to kind of figure out how it resolved. When you turned 4, we moved, but you also started to preschool. And so then you did have, real children that you could talk about and tell us what you were doing with them and all that kind of thing. But you always enjoyed playing with the Fisher-Price toys. And of course, that was when they were like the little people, just those little teeny things, not very real looking at all. But, you had the farm and the school and the house, and you did very imaginative play with those and kind of directed your brother and some of his little friends, and you would have these scenarios going on and all this kind of interaction. And that, to me, seemed to be kind of how you played out your imaginary friend thing. Led to creativity, as far as I was concerned, a very creative spirit, so...
Did any of your other children have imaginary friends?
Dad and I spoke about that last night because I was trying to recall. We could not think of it. We could not remember that they did. So yours, as soon as you asked me the names, they came to me immediately. But I don't remember the others having them. Maybe because there were more around the house.
Oh, yeah, there were other kids around. Well, the craziest thing about it all is that the only things that I remember or know today about Kathy and Susie are the things that you tell me. I have no recollection of this at all, and yet they were for a time my dearest friends.
Yes, Well, as I say, you were quite young, because we just figured, say, you were able to speak well, so you were probably like 2.5. But then by the time you got to 3.5 to 4, they kind of went off into the sunset, I guess you could say.
Farewell, Kathy and Susie.
Yes, they moved on to some other little girl's life.
Something I think a lot about in this, which I think is a very helpful perspective, is I was reading a book about kids with like severe autism. And the idea is like maybe a kid with severe autism sits and like spins something all day.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's all they want to do. And the orientation was always like, we have to stop getting him to spin the thing so that he will come join our world, this exciting world that we have. And so therefore, like, take away all the spinning things. And of course, all that resulted in was like an extremely anxious agitated child. And the metaphor that the person used is like, what if you're sitting in the park reading like Catcher in the Rye, J.D. Salinger, and somebody walks up to you and slaps that book out of your hand and it's like, J.D. Salinger's lame. We're going to go to the movies. And it's like, because you want that person to go to the movies with you. It's like, of course, that's not going to result in a successful interaction. And so that your orientation needs to be accessing that person so that the thing you want to do is sit down next to them for as long as it takes, days at a time, and read Franny and Zoe, another J.D. Salinger book. And that eventually, like, maybe that person looks at you and is like, hey, we're doing the same thing. Maybe there's a connection to be made here. And that eventually the metaphor works to like, you can then leave and be like, hey, let's go see there's a movie that reminds me of these books. Let's go see it together. That like, that is the path to accessing people. And I think there is something, although it's about, very unreachable people, I think of that metaphor constantly in my own life.
Right.
Like, and I think of it with my imaginative child who, like, honestly, if I never talked about the wishing stone again, it would be too soon. Like, I don't really want to do it. And she's a fairly easy to access child, so I don't really need it with her. But my kid, who is Marvel obsessed, is a little bit harder to access. And so to sit down with him and have a 45-minute conversation is very, very easy if I'm willing to talk about Marvel. And so, but I'm building from there. It's like, can we crawl out of that and talk about, bigger things or other things happening in his day? Yes, we can. So to start with Marvel, to join him in his imagination, like that's why that story about your dad is so sweet. Like it's such a bond for him to be like, come on, Amy and I driving around the neighborhood looking for our imaginary friend. Like it's adorable.
It's kind of no different from how we understand now we're supposed to help people with Alzheimer's, right? Which isn't to say constantly, yes, no, Uncle Joe isn't here. It's
your husband is dead, Marie. Like oddly, that doesn't work great.
You meet them where they are and you say, oh, okay, I think he'll be back in a little while. That kind of thing. You meet people where they are.
Or, I mean, there's the famous thing, and now I think it's actually in use, but there's a town, and of course, like some progressive
Danish. Norway, I've seen this.
Like somewhere where they do everything right online, and it's like for people with memory issues and stuff, because they found that like people would just get up like in the morning and be like, oh my God, I have to get to work. And they're like, yep, there you go. There's your briefcase. And it's just like a cardboard briefcase. It doesn't open. There's nothing in it. But they're like, here's your office. And like, they would just literally go through the motions of going. And it's very soothing. And then you can talk, how are you feeling today? Any aches or pains? Like you can access the information you actually need from them if they are sitting at their office doing their work. Like they're going through the motion of what calms them.
So Dr. Alter, she's the one who works with the anxious kids who are usually also very, very creative. It's one thing, like your daughter wants to talk about the magic wishing stone and she has no problem. Like it's awesome. And it's also working for her. It's not something that's keeping her awake at night, right? If you have a kid.
Right. Well, yeah, not yet. We'll see how it develops.
Not until there's leprechauns in the radiator, then who knows? So if she has a kid who comes to her who's somewhat motivated to put some kind of, I don't know, some guardrails on their imagination, which has to come from the kid at some point. She teaches them first that their imagination is a great gift, that they've been, gifted with this incredible flowering thing, but it has to have controls on it. And guess what? Just like you learn to ride a bike, and you learn to steer and you learn to brake, and now you're in control of the bike and it takes you where you want to go, you can control your imagination.
This is a great, great conversation.
Yeah. And and she gets into it like that. And then of course there are breathing exercises and, meditation exercises. There's a whole program she takes these kids through. But I really like that metaphor. Like, you can be in charge of this. This would also work for a kid who has temper tantrums, right? Like you can be in control of this thing that feels like it's in control of you. And we're going to teach you how.
Right. And I think, I've done some thinking and looking about stuff like this. And there's something that happens with some kids where it's like someone's telling me what to do. And that's very scary for parents because they're like, oh my God, like my kid has a demon. They're possessed or whatever. But that it's actually a fairly classic manifestation for kids to be like, someone's telling me what to do. And I had a kid who would say kind of things like that. And it has become like, I can't help it. What he's really trying to say is I feel out of control of this. And so one of the things that we've talked to him about is this metaphor of like, because he's a TV movie guy, when he's anxious, it's like, let's change the channel. Think about a channel changer. Think about a remote control where you're nervous and scared of like whatever. Of course, summer movies, we're in the phase of summer movies where the superhero movies, which like 10-year-olds want to go to, the previews are for like unbelievably terrifying movies. So like we took him to see some superhero movie and the preview was this like really scary shark movie where like this crazy great white shark was like eating teenagers and stuff. And he's like, I'm so scared of the shark. And I'm like, you have to change the channel and let's think of 4 other things you can change the channel to. And it's a really like concrete tool that says, when you see the shark, you're going to change the channel to either this, or this.
That's great. And then he has a menu and he feels like he's in charge.
Yeah. And I mean, listen, whenever we give this advice, it's not like, oh, and now he sleeps like a dream every night and we never hear another complaint.
Right.
Like we do this every night. We revisit it all the time. He freaks out from the beginning. And then I'm like, remember that you can change channel, blah, blah.
And if it's a kid who's really interested in imaginative worlds, then I guess you can place more of them in his or her path.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked a lot about how to put the brakes on this and make it less true. But if it's sort of indubitably a good thing for your kid to be imaginative and creative, then there are also ways that we can help our kids be more imaginative.
Okay.
Should we talk about them?
Sure.
Sounds like some of our kids kind of got it and some of them
need a little boost. I don't think I need any boosting around here, but okay. I'm willing to talk about it.
Open-ended materials, open-ended art materials and things like that to play with. Like the more our kids can play with clay and blocks and paper and crayons instead of building the Lego set that can only do one thing and then has to be put on a shelf and never touched again because it'll break.
Yeah. And that's a little personality wise. Like I have a kid who's he's obsessed with Legos, but he wants to build the thing that looks like the joy that he gets from it is like box of crazy and I put it together step by step and end up with Hogwarts Castle. Like that's what he likes out of it. He's not as gifted at open-ended imaginative play. And so we do some playing like that, but I can definitely see that like that's not his mindset.
But he does get a lot of time outside. Your kids get tons of time outside.
Yeah, they get a lot of unstructured time. But all I'm trying to say with this is like, if you have a kid who does not delight in imaginative play, it is going to be very hard for you to make him that kid.
Yeah, right. But leaning into the like, oh, fine, here's a screen every time.
Oh, no.
Like, there's nothing to do is also the wrong thing to do. There's a professor, her name is Amber Ankowski, and she says, she's a child psychologist, and she says kids need their imaginations most when there is nothing else to do. So that's sort of one of our like top 3 things. Let kids be bored, because if they've never had to use their imaginations, if you're solving every problem for them, then they won't.
Well, that is absolutely true. And even people with little kids, like nowadays, every toy is like, it's electronic. It beeps, it boops, it transforms into a spider and tickles them. Like
that sounds like a scary toy.
Kids do much. I guess I'm sorry. I don't know where that came from.
It's your imagination.
I'm very imaginative. But this is a great tip that is like counterintuitive. developmentally, toys that your kid brings all of the imagination to are much, much better than toys that are like, it beeps, it whirls, it does a dance. Like, let your kids play with things where they have to make stuff themselves.
And then fiction, of course. Like reading your kids' books, getting your kids to read. The struggle is real, right? I have older kids and they're supposed to be reading for school this summer. And when they can hold a little palm-sized computer in their hand, why would they read a book? But they do. It's like 10 pages a day. Come on, guys. And it helps fictional worlds. They help develop empathy, like we were saying on the episode about empathy, and it certainly helps them create imaginative capacity.
And it helps them go places they don't normally go. Like my 5th grader, his school is always working on a fiction book. So they read it out loud together in class, one chapter, and then you're supposed to read it at home when they get home. It's like they double read it, basically. And the books have been kind of intense. Like one was about some Danish people escaping the Holocaust, and one was about a kid who lost her father. And like they're kind of heavy. I'm like, whoa, here we go. But we talked about this with Evangeline Lilly. It says to your kid, like, I trust you with this information. You're going to be ready to start handling this stuff. And like, I'm watching these superhero movies with my kid and they're pretty darn intense, like kids are ready for tough stories and scary stories. They need to start processing that stuff.
And the fiction is worth it. Like, I feel like my kids are being asked to read these sort of serious nonfiction. Like one of my kids is reading about like somebody in a Russian jail. It's a memoir of like, I spent 30 years in a Russian jail. Like really? Like, can you just read The Hunger Games? Like it has to, right. It's pretty serious. And I guess it's
right. But when you say The Hunger Games is about teenagers murdering each other with arrows.
Right. But it's like, oh my God. I mean, but talk about a microcosm that author created and creative. And I'm not saying your 8-year-old should read it, but your 12-year-old should. And I can't put it down. And it inspires creativity, I think.
Yeah. Something I've been thinking about a lot lately in different contexts, but I think it really goes to this is I was watching Beyonce's Homecoming. You didn't think that was going to come up in today's episode.
That's not an old deluxe alert.
Oh my God. I'm finally not making
You're
it.
so hip.
I was watching Beyonce at Coachella, guys, because I'm hip. And then we were watching Project Runway for some reason. And what I took away from it is like, I feel like historically, Homecoming with African-American people, Project Runway primarily with gay people. The idea that like for decades, these people were kind of dismissed and like marginalized, and watching the amazing art that comes from people when you're like, okay, go. Like nobody's mashing you down and being like, this is not the way you're supposed to be in the world. Yeah. You're supposed to only fit this crazy box. And both projects to me, I looked at them and I was like, these are the expressions of imaginations that historically you kind of haven't been able to see because they weren't welcome in the world. And they both the like beautiful, amazing, imaginative fashion and this like unbelievable music and expression of Homecoming. It's like meeting people where they are and seeing the results of like their own expression and imagination is such an amazing gift. And it made me think of that when we were having this whole conversation.
I guess if there's a takeaway, it's that it's not our job as the parent to tamp down on it, to worry about it and make them fit the crazy box, as you said, that the world is going to do that for them. And maybe that's a little painful, but that's part of growing up.
It takes some real bravery, though, because it's easy to say that in a pat way.
Sure.
But when you have the kid you have a boy who's wearing dresses, you have a kid who is still dressing as Woody when he's 9 years old in the school costume parade, you have a kid who is really differently expressing themselves. I mean, I say this all the time. People are always like, my kid's so weird. And I'm like, your kid wears like a Mick Jagger t-shirt.
That's you,
That's
right.
not weird.
That's imposed upon
That's
the
cool.
Kid. Yeah.
Let's talk about weird. Like weird is the kid who really is like the girl who wears like the hot dog in the princess parade. Like everyone's looking at the parent and being like, what's wrong with your kid? And everyone's looking at the kid and being like, what's wrong with you? Like, it's easy to say, like, let it flourish, but we recognize that it can mean something very uncomfortable for a while.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's not our job to shut it down, because for almost all kids, this sort of imaginative world play stuff, and it's different, I think, for kids who are on the spectrum and who have that sort of singularity of interest as a sort of, primary feature of their personality. But for most kids, we're talking about like neurotypical kids, even the kids who are into the world play and the maps and the languages and the, leprechauns and the radiators, that starts to go away as they shift from imaginary interactions to peer interactions. Mm-hmm. And by the time you're a teenager, this stuff is gone. And so is all, you will look back fondly on your kid's imaginary friend, even though it might seem like, is there something weird about my 3-year-old that she won't stop talking about Soren Lawrenson? It does change. It does go away. And then there's this nostalgia you have for it. But I guess I just mean you don't have to be the one to say, you can't wear the hot dog costume. You're weird. You're too old for that now. Don't worry about that. This sadly self-corrects. And that very imaginative kid, it's proof of their creativity that will probably come out in them in some way. And I think your job is to sort of protect it, not from all the consequences of their still wanting to play town when everybody else is talking about, who's dating who. The world takes care of that, though. You don't have to tamp down on it or worry about it.
Yeah, you don't really, even for non-neurotypical kids, I think it's like the basic takeaway is like, you're really not in control of how this turns out. And so your only job is to meet your kid where they are and then help lead them into connection with other people, but never be like, stop doing that weird thing you're doing and do whatever else everyone else is doing because you'll be happier. That doesn't work. It doesn't work. And so just let it go and like help them walk with you.
We solved it.
We definitely solved this one, guys. So we, as always, want to know what is happening. We don't want to know all the details about the magic wishing stone, but we do want to know in general how imagination is playing out in your house. And you can tell us on our Facebook page, facebook.com/whatfreshhellcast.
You could go on Instagram, which is also What Fresh Hellcast, and send us pictures of the imaginary friends. That'd be cool.
Amy, I have a spoiler for you. There's going to be no pictures of the imaginary friends. Norma Nersher.
This was Research a Go-Go. There's so much interesting books and whatever, and I'm going to put it all up on whatfreshhellpodcast.com, and I'll link to some of it on Twitter, too, at WFH Podcast.
That's it for us this week, guys. Go enjoy your magic wishing stones.
Go frolic.
We'll talk to you next time.
You can't reason with the sun. Trust us, we've tried. This summer, it's time to put that angry ball of fire on mute. Columbia's Omni-Shade technology is engineered to protect you from the sun's harsh rays that can burn and damage your skin. The sun is relentless, but so is our gear. Level up your summer at Columbia.com to spend more time outside and less time slathering on aloe lotion. You're welcome. Columbia, engineered for whatever.